Welcome to the YouTube channel. Today I will tell you some good stories that I collected on Reddit and explore the nightlife of Hanoi, Vietnam. Am I an asshole for suing my cousin for $6,000 for hearing aids after he threw me in the pool? My family is all on my cousin's side on this one, and I wanted some outside judgment. My 25-year-old cousin has always been the darling of our generation. He's funny, handsome, and outgoing, not to mention a ladies' man. He's always joking and playing pranks. Honestly, I really don't like my cousin. I think he's irresponsible, childish, and annoying. I've had trouble hearing for years. I recently bought a $6,000 pair of hearing aids. Recently at my grandmother's birthday party, we were all eating on the back porch. My grandmother has a pool. My cousin decided he was going to throw me in the pool because it would be funny to ruin my newly cut hair that day. I told him to stop and put me down several times in a very serious tone and not at all joking. He threw me in the pool and my hearing aids broke. Later, when I told him what happened, he just said, "Oh, I didn't know you had hearing aids now." When I told him about the cost of the aids and that he would have to replace them, he freaked out and said no way. My family didn't want me to make him pay because I made more money than him and the rest of the family. He was in college at the time, working as a call center operator for a living. He and his girlfriend had a child and they lived in a one-bedroom apartment. He refused to pay, so I took him to court. I won. He then refused to pay, so I took him back to court and his wages are now being garnished to the maximum, which is 20% of his gross pay. That has pushed him beyond his means, so he has had to work overtime and drop out of college to pay the rent. My family is really mad at me. I think he made one bad choice after another, and he never offered a sincere apology throughout the process. If he had actually apologized after the incident and asked if he could wait until he finished school to pay me, I would have agreed. But that entitled little bastard is being stubborn with his every move. Am I an asshole? The only reason I can see myself as an asshole is because it affects his kids and girlfriend. Story 2. Am I an asshole for not giving in to my wife's family? So I'm 34 and gamble occasionally. I'm talking about maybe once every few months or so I'll go to the casino or play poker with some friends. It's nothing serious. I don't spend a lot of money and I'm definitely fine. My wife, who is 30, knows about it and she's fine with it. But her family, they absolutely hate it. Every time we get together with her parents or siblings, they always say that gambling is irresponsible or immoral. They make sarcastic comments, and sometimes they even scold my wife for letting me gamble. It's like they're blaming her for not being assertive or something. We've been married for 5 years, and this has been going on the whole time. Honestly, it's really annoying. I don't even gamble that often, and when I do, I don't feel like I'm spending my life savings or anything. It's my money, and we're financially stable, so I don't see it as a big deal. My wife usually lets it slide, but I can tell she gets annoyed when her family criticizes her. I've tried talking to them about it, explaining that it's just a hobby and I don't have a problem, but they don't care. They're just overly judgmental about anything gambling related. Now I'm at the point where I don't even want to gamble with them anymore because it's always such a big deal. Am I an asshole for continuing to gamble even though my wife's family clearly hates it and constantly hurts her? Should I stop to keep the peace, or am I giving in too much? Story 3. Am I an asshole for skipping dinner after my boyfriend humiliated me in front of his family over my cooking? I am 26 and my 28-year-old boyfriend have been together for about a year. We get along great for the most part, but something happened last weekend that really bothered me. We went to his parents' house for dinner, and since then, things have been awkward. Let me back up a little bit. I love to cook. I'm not an expert, but it is something I am passionate about and proud of. My boyfriend knows this, but he constantly compares my cooking to his mother's, especially when it comes to her lasagna. I have heard about this lasagna more times than I can count. So before we left for his parents' house, he made a flippant comment. Maybe you finally learned how to make lasagna properly tonight. Yours definitely needs improvement. I tried to laugh it off, but honestly, It hurt my feelings. However, I brushed it aside because I didn't want to start anything before dinner. We got to his parents' house, and as expected, his mom's lasagna was the star of the meal. Everyone raved about it, and of course, my boyfriend jumped in and said, "Oh my gosh, this is real lasagna." I've tried it once, but let's just say, there's a reason we're all here to eat my mom's tonight. Everyone laughed. I felt embarrassed, but smiled anyway to avoid making things awkward. He then went on to say that I burned the sauce I didn't, and that maybe I should let the professionals handle the lasagna. His family burst out laughing, and I sat there, trying not to lose my cool. To me, it wasn't just a joke. I felt like he was putting me down, especially in front of his family, whom I was still trying to make a good impression on. I couldn't take it anymore, so I excused myself from the table and went to get in my car. A few minutes later, my boyfriend came out, looking confused, and asked why I left. I told him how hurt I was by his comments, and instead of apologizing, he said I was overreacting and that it was just a joke. He said I needed to stop being so sensitive and learn to take jokes, especially in front of his family. I was upset and told him that if he thought it was funny to embarrass me in front of his family, then maybe he should go on a date with his mom's cookie. Now it's not okay. He got angry and accused me of ruining the night. We've barely spoken since then, and he's waiting for me to apologize, but I feel like he should be the one apologizing. So now I'm wondering, did I go too far? Was I being desensitive, or was I right to walk away after being embarrassed like that? Was I being a jerk? Story 4. Am I an asshole for disowning my parents after inheriting a large sum of money and refusing to help them? My parents had a difficult marriage, often dragging me into their arguments. They always made it seem like I was the main cause of all their problems. They had terrible spending habits and always indulged themselves beyond their needs and limits. My grandfather, who had been my rock, became estranged from my parents because of their begging for money. I spent most weekends at his house, where I felt safe and loved, away from the chaos at home. As soon as I turned 18, I moved out of my parents' house immediately and stayed with my grandfather. My grandfather passed away a month ago. He left me a sizable inheritance money that would change my life. I just received the money last week. He always told me to be responsible with money and never let money control me, something I took to heart after witnessing my parents' financial struggles and irresponsible decisions. After he passed away, my parents came to me to discuss their inheritance. They were deep in debt, taking out loans and using credit cards to cover their living expenses and purchases after my dad lost his job during COVID. My mom worked part-time. Their financial problems had escalated and they were now on the brink of foreclosure. They saw my inheritance as a way out. When they asked me for help, I felt extremely angry. These were the same parents who had looked down on me, often making me feel like a burden. I had always been the one sacrificing my own needs for them, and now they wanted to take advantage of me. After not thinking much about it, I decided to decline their request for financial help. When I told them, their reaction was violent. They shouted at me, hurled insults and accusations. They thought I was selfish and ungrateful for all the sacrifices they had made for me. My dad's anger quickly escalated into violence. He slammed his fist into the wall, breaking his wrist. My mom joined in, screaming and threatening to cut me off completely and generally trashing my house. I called the police. When they arrived, my parents were still furious, yelling at me, throwing things around, and blaming me for their problems. The officers tried to calm them down, but my dad continued to berate me, insisting that I was ruining the family. Eventually, they decided to take my parents aside for a private conversation while I stayed in another room. They came out and asked me if I wanted to press charges. Gratefully, I said no and asked them to wait outside while I spoke to them one last time. After the police left, my parents were quiet, but the tension in the house was obvious. I basically told them to never contact me again and that if I saw them near my house, I would arrest them. At that moment, I realized that I had made a position that would forever change our relationship. I had made a choice to prioritize my future and happiness over their demands, even if it meant losing them completely. They told me that the money had gone to my head, that I would face karma, and that they hoped I would suffer greatly. Even though I didn't love my parents, I still felt guilty and insecure. I had the opportunity to build a better life, but it came at the cost of my conscience and family relationships. So I was an asshole, right? Story 5. Am I an asshole for cutting off my best friend after he slipped alcohol into my drink? Despite knowing I was recovering from an alcohol addiction, I have been sober for almost 2 years now. I had a pretty serious problem with alcohol when I was 20, but after hitting rock bottom and losing a lot of things that were important to me, I decided to quit drinking. My journey has been tough, but I am strong and it was worth it. My best friend, Jake, has known me since college. We have been through everything together, and he has seen me at my worst. When I first told him I was recovering from an alcohol addiction, he was very supportive. He even attended a few AA meetings with me and always checked in to make sure I was okay when we went out. Flashback to last weekend. Jake had a party at his house. He loves hosting big events like this, and I'm usually fine with being there, sipping soda or sparkling water while everyone else is drinking. Jake always makes sure I have non-alcoholic options, and I trust him on that, you know? Anyway, at this party, Jake seemed a little wilder than usual. Like, he pushed drinks to everyone, even people who didn't seem to care. I wasn't worried, though, because he always respected my sobriety. At some point during the night, Jake handed me what I thought was just a can of Coke. I didn't even think about it. I took a sip, and immediately I knew there was alcohol in it. My heart sank. I didn't want to believe he would do that, so I confronted him. He just laughed and said, "Come on, it's just one drink. You're not going to go crazy over one sip." I was stunned. He KNEW what I was going through. He knew how much I had struggled to get here, and he just shrugged it off like it was no big deal. It felt like a slap in the face. I left the party immediately. The next day, I texted him and explained how hurt and betrayed I felt. I told him that what he did wasn't just a joke, but actually dangerous for me. Instead of apologizing, he called me a jerk and said I was overreacting. He said, "You didn't even finish your drink. You're not relapsed." After that, I decided I couldn't be friends with him anymore. I blocked him from everything. But now our mutual friends were telling me I went too far, that Jake was drunk and not thinking clearly, and that I should forgive him. They said I blew it all out of proportion and that ending the friendship wasn't worth it. I don't know. Maybe I'm being harsh, but this feels like a huge betrayal. So am I an asshole for cutting off my best friend after he spilled alcohol in my drink, even though he knew I was recovering from alcoholism? Story 6. Am I a bad father for refusing to walk my daughter down the aisle because of what she did to her mother? Well, this has been a constant issue in my family for a while, but now that the wedding is coming up, things have come to a head. I am 50 years old and have a daughter, Emma, 26, with whom I have always had a very close relationship. I have been married to my wife, Laura, 49, for 30 years. We are a solid family, or so I thought. Here's the backstory. A few years ago, Emma met her current fiancé, Tom, 28. Things moved quickly between them, and she fell head over heels in love with him. At first, we were happy for her, but something changed after a year of dating. Emma became distant from us, especially her mother. Laura and Emma used to be very close, but suddenly Emma started snapping at her over little things, avoiding family dinners, and not sharing anything about her life. Then we figured out why. About a year and a half ago, I overheard Emma and Tom talking when they didn't know I was there. She said horrible things about her mother that really hurt me. Emma told Tom that she couldn't stand her mother's oppressive ways, that Laura always tried to control her, and that she felt Laura was jealous of her life and success. She even said that she was resentful to her mother for putting so much pressure on her when she was younger. I was stunned. Laura had always supported Emma in everything she did, from helping her through college to giving her emotional support during difficult times. I had never seen this happen, but instead of dealing with it right away, I wanted to wait and talk to Emma calmly later. When I finally brought it up with her, she went completely silent and defensive. She claimed that I supported her mother and that I didn't understand what it was like to grow up with someone who meddled in your business. She said some really hurtful things and eventually walked away. After that, she basically cut off all contact with her mother, except for the absolute bare minimum of communication around holidays or family events. Laura was devastated. I was angry. It was a mess. Back to the present, Emma's getting married. She called me last week to ask if I could walk her down the aisle. But here's the thing, I don't feel right doing that when she treats her mother like this. Laura wasn't even invited to the wedding. Emma said it would make things too uncomfortable if her mother was there. I told Emma that I couldn't walk her down the aisle if she excluded her mother, who had done nothing but love and support her all her life. I said that until she made up with her mother, I wouldn't be at the wedding. Emma was furious. She accused me of choosing her mother over her, said I was ruining her big day, and claimed that I was punishing her for being honest about her feelings. Now she's threatening to have no contact with either of us, and I'm heartbroken. I love my daughter, but I can't stand by and watch her treat her mother like this. AITA for refusing to walk her down the aisle? AITA for refusing to help foster parents after they treated me like a servant? I am 32 years old and grew up in a foster home, and after moving from home to home, I ended up with a couple when I was about 12. At first, they seemed okay, but it didn't take long for me to realize that I wasn't really part of the family. From the day I moved in, I was treated more like a live-in maid than a daughter. They made me do all the cleaning, cooking, laundry, you name it. I was the one who scrubbed the floors, cooked dinner, did their laundry ... even ironed their clothes to their standards. They didn't even let me have a normal childhood. No after-school activities, no hanging out with friends, and forget about dating. I was always told, you need to stay home, as if I was just there to serve them. If I didn't do well enough or if I missed something, they would punish me by giving me extra chores, or sometimes they would take away my food. Emotionally, they were just cold. They never gave me advice, never helped me study, and certainly never encouraged me to do better. When I wanted to apply to college, I had to figure it all out on my own. They didn't even help me apply or support me in any way. I always felt alone in that house, but I worked hard to get out of there. I managed to get into college, got a good job in marketing, and now I'm doing very well for myself. I've moved on and tried to forget about it all. However, a few weeks ago, I got a call from my former foster parents. They're struggling now, obviously in debt, and they said they needed financial help. They expected me to take care of them because they raised me. I was so angry. I told them after the way they treated me, they had no right to ask for anything. I didn't owe them anything. They were so angry, calling me ungrateful, selfish, and saying that all the tough love they gave me made me who I am today. They even told my foster siblings, who treat me much better, by the way, that I was heartless for abandoning them. And now my foster siblings are blaming me, saying that I should have helped them and that I'm holding on to the past too much. I don't know. I don't think I owe them anything, but maybe I'm being too harsh, AITA? AITA for allowing my husband to walk out when our children make him angry? My husband is 29 and I'm 27. We met in college and have been together for 7 years. We have been married for 5 years. We have 2 children, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, both boys, with our third due in just a few months, our first daughter. My husband is a very kind man, but he had a difficult childhood. This was one of the first things he told me. His father was very abusive to his mother, him and his brother. In turn, this turned him into a very angry teenager. However, my husband decided to go to therapy and became a better person at the age of 19. As I said, he and I have been together for 7 years, and he has never raised his voice at me. He is kind, compassionate, and extremely gentle with me and now our children. Our kids are brats, though obviously I love my boys and I wouldn't trade them or motherhood for anything in the world. But some days are easier than others. I think every parent feels that way at some point. For this reason, when my husband finds himself frustrated or angry, he simply walks away from the situation. He broke down and admitted to me that when the kids yell, argue, or act out, he gets angry. He's so scared of being like his dad that he just walks away. He takes a breath. Sometimes it's just in our bedroom. Sometimes he walks away and goes to the gas station just to drive. He always comes back 20 minutes later and gives me a treat for being patient enough to deal with them, LOL. This only happens occasionally. He handles it well for the most part, and my boys love their dad. I mentioned this to my mom the other day and she was shocked. She told me that this is completely unacceptable and that my husband needs to find a way to control his emotions while still helping me take care of the kids. My sister agreed. I personally have no problem with this and I was really going to let it go. But my mom said that my kids might think their dad is leaving because he doesn't care. And she even said that my husband might not care. But I don't know. I actually think this is a good thing. AITA for thinking that. AITA for accidentally revealing to my pregnant wife that I used to pamper my ex with massages. I am 32 and need some advice. My wife is 29 and I have been married for a few years and she is currently pregnant with our first child. Last night she complained of some pretty bad neck and back pain. We are not the type of people who like to give each other massages, but I wanted to help her because she was so uncomfortable, so I offered to give her a massage. I'm not bad at it and I know how to make someone feel good. I gave her a shoulder massage and she seemed to really enjoy it. It was actually a really nice and intimate moment between us. Things got a little heated when I hugged her passionately and kissed her in a very specific way that I don't really do. Then she asked me rather shyly, "Where did you learn to do all that?" At the time, I didn't think much about my answer. She assumed that maybe I had watched a YouTube video or something. I told her that my ex, whom I used to live with, worked long hours, and I learned how to do specific massages and cook to help her relax. I explained that it was all muscle memory at the time, and that's why I know how to give a good massage now. That's when the mood completely changed. My wife was silent and then asked, "Is that why you never gave me a massage before?" I really didn't know what to say. I had never thought much about why I hadn't given her a massage in the past. But the way she asked the question made me realize that I may have been subconsciously avoiding doing it because of the memories associated with doing this for my ex. I tried to explain that it wasn't that I was thinking about my ex, or that those memories meant anything to me now. My ex and I were even engaged at one point, but I really didn't have any feelings for her anymore. We split amicably, and my wife had been insecure about her for a long time. She had retroactive jealousy issues. She cried to me and said that she thought she was the only one special enough to me to give her a massage and that no other woman deserved that kind of sweetness and thoughtfulness from me. She was upset and quiet, and I felt bad. I never intended for a simple massage to cause all of this, and I'm struggling to figure out the best way to handle it. Boyfriend of 5 months wants to visit Thailand for 2 months. Should I be concerned? My boyfriend and I were having an amazing night. We ordered food, enjoyed our meal together, and then went over to get some ice cream. Then, he brought up that he was going to go to Thailand, but without me. He had mentioned going to Thailand for like 2 weeks ago for Muay Thai training. When I told him it was always my dream to go to Thailand, had an opportunity to live there, but couldn't because of COVID, I asked him if I could go. At the time, he said he wouldn't want me to distract him from training. Other times mentioned that if I went to come after a week or 2 and then join him. I never peer pressured him or brought it up to annoy him. He was always the one to bring up the trip. But this time around, he bluntly said he wanted to go alone for 2 months. Now for context, he's ending a contract with his job soon and might have to potentially relocate to another city. Keyword, Might. He said that he wanted to stay in the same city we are currently in, but that after his contract would be over that he would book a trip to go to Thailand, and then possibly end his lease, and then maybe stay with me for a while until he searches for a new job that will let him stay where we currently live. Mind you, we currently don't live together, just in the same city. I, however, can't shake off this uncomfortable gut feeling. I'm Latina, and he's white. He's always boasted about how American girls aren't for him, but the ethnic girls, especially Latinas, suit him better. He's also, in the past, mentioned that I probably wouldn't be the last girl he's with, but whenever I get uneasy about the whole situation, he'd just tell me that he could never leave me. My gut-wrenching feeling above all else is that Thailand is known for its taboo culture of white American men traveling to Thailand and being open to the new attention of the Asian ethnic girls. Even though he calmly reassures me sometimes that he would never cheat, he'd admit that he's done it before, and has even seen his own stepfather do it to his mother. Am I wrong for having an awful gut feeling about this? I'm his girlfriend right now, but by the sounds of it, it seems like there's a lot of uncertainty with where he is going to go and who he might end up with. Am I crazy? Is there a chance he's trying to make sure I don't travel and stay in Thailand with him so he can live his fantasies in peace? Why does he want to go without me so bad? Why can't we go together? Thoughts. AITA for divorcing my wife because she refuses to set boundaries with her toxic family. My wife comes from a very close-knit family, but unfortunately, they're incredibly toxic. Her parents constantly interfere in our lives, criticizing everything from our financial decisions to how we run our household. They even go so far as to show up unannounced, expecting to be accommodated every time. I've tried countless times to set boundaries, but my wife refuses to enforce them. Every time I bring it up, she gets defensive, saying that family is everything and she doesn't want to create tension. But the tension is already there, and it's killing our marriage. I can't handle the constant intrusion anymore, and it's gotten to the point where I dread spending time with her family. After years of trying to make this work, I told her that I want a divorce. I can't live like this anymore, feeling like her family has more influence over our relationship than I do. I've asked her to prioritize our marriage, but she never seems to do so. She's devastated and insists that I'm being unreasonable, but I feel like I've done everything I can to make this work. I want a life where my marriage comes first, and I don't see that happening as long as her family remains such a dominant force. Am I the asshole for ending our marriage over this, or is it justified given how much it's affected my mental health and our relationship? AITA for exposing the two male classmates who abused me and the rest that enabled them. I was abused in different occasions by two different male classmates while studying abroad, and these behaviors were enabled by the rest of my classmates in my male-dominated master program. Here is my story. I will write it as short as I can because many things happened during these nightmarish 2 years. During the first 2 months of my life in this new country, I made the mistake to date a classmate and trust him, let's call him Eric. I confide to Eric with not many details the domestic violence I suffered before I came to this country. I could never imagine he would use my vulnerabilities to exploit me. I couldn't just fathom a person could do this to someone they are dating and care about. I was wrong. He took advantage of me estranged one night, and after he took what he wanted, he made racist comments. He kicked me out in the night in an area I didn't know, leaving me feeling like SH1T and unsafe in this new country. He ghosted me for 3 days. No explanation or apology for what he did. After I kicked him out of the group chat with the other classmates, he demanded from me to keep it private while he was trying to gaslight me and put the blame on me. Mind that he knew from the start that we would be in the same classroom for 2 years. I did not know what to do. I was devastated and in shock and denial. He self-isolated after what he did. However, the fact that I was forced to be in the same classroom with him was just too much. I started confiding the situation to some of my classmates, those who were labeling themselves as feminists. The most usual answer I would get was he's just a man. Men do this all the time. I started seeing many of them doing things outside the uni without me. They would organize things in front of me and I was unwelcome. I didn't know the reason why. After the first semester, a smaller group of friends was created and I was part of it, the only woman in the companion though. At first, I was happy that things turned out this way and I really cared about my new friends, even though some of them kept being part of the bigger companion that was excluding me. In the middle of the second semester, I learned that many of the classmates who were excluding me were doing so because I was dramatic. One of my friends, let's call him Adam, told me that they just do not like me because I'm too dramatic. Even though they were claiming that they were supportive of me, they weren't. They were backstabbing me and were trying to include Eric in the big events they would organize. Even though my group of friends knew that I did not want Eric around me, they would let him join our group whenever he wanted to stick around us for some sick, twisted reason I do not know. As you can imagine, my mental health started becoming worse and worse and worse because of the hostile environment I was in. In the end of the second semester, one other classmate, let's name him Ross, sexually harassed me in public and in front of Adam. Ross kept asking me to have S3X with him after months of him complimenting me and getting jealous whenever another guy was talking to me. Adam not only did nothing to stop him, but he defended him as well when I stood up for myself. He was saying that he was just drunk, it was a bad joke, etc. I was pretty upset, so I distanced myself for some months. Then, they managed to lure me back to their group by telling me that Ross was very remorseful for what he did. So I gave them another chance, like the fool I am. Things became rough again when I found a boyfriend. Ross was acting jealous after he met my boyfriend. He would say erratic, weird things. I did not give him much attention because I was focused on other stuff. But one night when he was left alone with my BF at a bar, he said pretty feeked up stuff about me to him. Things like I fucked up with her pretty bad. You will never be on her mind like I do. She is upset with you. She will dump you. When I tried to confront this behavior, I found myself for once again in a hostile situation where my dear male friends were defending Ross again, trying to make me believe that I was crazy. This was the last straw for me. I met with Adam and started yelling at him after he made multiple sexist, dismissive comments, and then I left. I reported all these events to the university. And even though the uni advised me to report them to the authorities, they did nothing because the abuse happened outside of it. I completely distanced myself. I did not go to the last courses. A few days after these offenses, I wrote a long, harsh message in a group chat that included all of my classmates and some from other programs explaining the abuse I suffered during my studies and accusing them all for enabling it. I provided some screenshots that were proof of what I went through, but covered the names of the individuals involved. I was so devastated that I just wanted to take it out of me and for them to be held accountable. I knew that they would call me dramatic for once again. But I did not care anymore, so I simply told the things I wanted to tell and left the group chat after I sent the text. I blocked all of them on social media and made a report to the police. I still cannot fathom, months after all these happened, the fact that none of the 12 classmates stood up for me or had any decent behavior toward me, and I do not know why. Was I overreacting? Aita? Aita for arguing with my dad and brother after my brother took my gift, and they both hit me in a hotel room? I went on a week-long trip with some friends. My younger brother, who's much bigger than me, tagged along, and we've always had a complicated relationship. He knows how to seem like a nice guy to others, but he doesn't respect me, which has been a pattern since childhood. Growing up, my dad clearly favored him. My dad never corrected my brother's disrespect, and while my dad has done a lot for me and I'm indefinitely grateful for everything, I've always been forced to believe my brother was somehow better because he was so vastly favored over me. This led to a lot of resentment. My dad has hit me many times over the years, starting when I was around 7/8, while never hitting my brother. This has always made me feel like I'm less important. During the trip, my brother didn't respect me, ordering me around and dismissing me, even though he was staying with me. I tried to avoid conflict. One evening, My dad arrived and wanted me to join him, my brother, and some relatives for dinner. I was already out with a friend and explained that I wanted to spend time with her since it was our last evening together. My dad got angry and started scolding me over the phone in front of others, which isn't the first time he's done that. My mom had asked both me and my brother to buy a gift for a relative. Despite my busy schedule, I managed to pick one out the night before, while my brother, who had plenty of free time, didn't bother to get anything. The next day, my mom called asking me to pick out another gift on behalf of my brother. I initially said yes, but later declined, realizing it was late and I was too tired. When I got back to the hotel, I found out my brother had taken the gift I carefully picked out and given it as his own. I was frustrated and asked my dad why that happened. I admit I raised my voice. I was tired and angry. My dad immediately got up and slapped me, telling me to lower my voice. He didn't address what my brother had done. This escalated, and by the time my brother entered the room, both of them were hitting me. My dad held me by the neck and screamed at me. I admit I said some harsh words in anger, but I was beyond frustrated. Both of them, who were much bigger than me, were ganging up on me and hitting me. At one point, I told them if they didn't stop, I'd report this to the hotel reception. My brother twisted my words and said I was threatening to call the police, which I never said. Afterward, my dad told me to leave and never call him dad again. We haven't spoken since. He called me a rogue to my mom. I ended up telling my cousin about the incident, and later, my dad said I was disgracing his name by sharing it with people. What lingers in my mind is that he knows it's a disgrace to hit his 21-year-old daughter, but to him, the disgrace is telling people about it. I can't wrap my head around that. I'm scared that I've lost him for good, and part of me fears I'll regret it if something happens to him. He's hit me before, but I can't forgive him this time because there was no reason to hit me. He let my brother hit me, and they ganged up on me together. He's more concerned about me telling people than about his actions. I can't help feeling guilty for the harsh words I said to my dad, but I also feel so betrayed, upset, and sad for the way the man who was supposed to protect me acted. I always feel bad when I see other girls with good relationships with their dads, and it makes this situation hurt even more. AITA for arguing with my dad and brother in the hotel room and refusing to let it go. AITA for calling out my wife's ex-boyfriend in front of his wife and parents. Hi, I'm 36 yo and father to two little girls, 3 yo and 1 yo. My wife Catherine 35F went to Catholic school her whole life, but she was never especially religious. I didn't meet her until her early 20s. But she told me high school was difficult for her. She had a serious boyfriend named John who was popular and came from a prominent family in their hometown. John's mom is very religious and organized retreats for the girls in their church to discuss issues like chastity and the pro-life movement. Catherine still follows John's mom on Facebook, and she wrote a long post when Roe v. Wade was overturned calling it a joyous day. John liked the post, left a heart emoji in the comments, and reposted. A few months before Catherine graduated from high school, she found out she was pregnant. She told John, and they both agreed they should get an abortion. She told me they cried together and that he told her he was going to support her through it. He also asked her if he could talk to his dad about what happened, and while she felt uncomfortable with this at the time, she said okay because she didn't want him to suffer alone. Long story short, he broke up with her a few days later and then refused to speak with her about the pregnancy or anything else. He told a bunch of guys from their high school that he ended it because she was needy and spread her legs too easily. These were words my wife never forgot. Her last few months of high school were horrible both because she had to deal with the abortion on her own and because she was being harassed by guys at school because of some of the rumors John spread. One of his friends even groped her in the middle of the hallway. He literally stuck his hand under her skirt, but she was too ashamed to tell her parents. He told John what happened, and he literally laughed about it and said love being touched there. Catherine said it was devastating for her at the time. She said she felt completely abandoned during the hardest experience of her life, and I know she had a difficult time trusting men for a long time after this. My wife is actually a child trauma therapist now and is completely dedicated to helping children who have gone through difficult things. Her old high school recently ran a story about her in the alumni magazine, and her parents and sisters circulated it on Facebook. This weekend, we took a trip to her hometown. It's about an 8-hour drive so the girls could see their grandparents. On the first night on the trip, we went to the family's favorite Mexican place. Her parents took the girls to the park beforehand, and so Catherine and I got to the place a bit early. We were waiting for our table when Catherine spotted John and his parents. Everyone hugged her, and John introduced Catherine to his wife. My wife was polite as always, but I could tell she was a bit shocked and uncomfortable. John's mom mentioned the article about Catherine and said how wonderful it is that she does such important work. I probably should have walked away, but my blood was boiling and I felt the need to stick up for my wife. I looked at John's mom and said it's inspiring to be married to a woman who does work that actually helps children. I then looked at John and said that some kids go through a lot, like getting pregnant and then being abandoned by the person who put them in that position. I don't know if his mom or wife knew about the abortion. I'm assuming his dad did because he told Catherine he was going to talk to him, but you could literally hear a pin drop. I then told John that I wish he had never met my wife and that I hope my girls never date a man like him. John then apologized to Catherine and said he was young and scared at the time and didn't know what to do. Catherine accepted his apology and said she was past it now. John's mom kept asking what was going on, but neither of them said anything about the pregnancy or abortion. My wife was not too happy about the situation when we got home. She said he was also young at the time, and while she was pissed about what happened, I didn't need to humiliate him in front of his wife and parents. I told her that I lost my cool when I saw him and thought about all the pain he caused her. I also said he should be humiliated because of how he treated her. She said I stooped to his level, and I said I was only trying to defend her. AITA? AITA for taking a book bag I was told to borrow. My 26-year-old boyfriend and I always come back to the debates that really speak to our personalities and make us wonder if it's a red flag. In this case, it was about a brand new 1-of-4 school bag that hasn't been used since he bought it about a year ago. After spending a few hours helping him clean out his bedroom closet, we sorted through the many you get the idea school bags and drawstring bags that he's collected and barely used over the years. Looking at the 4-plus-year-old school bag that I wanted to replace, I figured there was no better time than now to shop. I asked if I could have one to replace mine, and after some hesitation, he said I could borrow it until his current Swiss bag fell apart. At this point, the Swiss bag was about 4 years old and looked like new. I told him right away that borrowing it was ridiculous and that I would not return the bag. Fast forward a few months, and now we're getting ready for a trip where we'll be hiking the Narrows and Zion NP. I told him I'm trying to decide between my hiking book bag, which is more comfortable, and his book bag, which allows for my packing material while traveling. He immediately gets upset about me putting his book bag in the position to get messy and destroyed. I'm over this fight before it has even started because I constantly feel like he overreacts about the condition of things that will not make or break him. I got a drop of ice cream on his shirt, and now I can't wear his shirts. He sees me roll his suitcase through a puddle, and now I destroy things. So with this I have zero fucks. I tell him to get over it and that it's mine. In the end, he offered to buy me a Swiss book bag instead of letting me take this one, a much cheaper bag. I really don't need or want a Swiss book bag and was even more angry and annoyed at the offer. I know I sounded ungrateful. He told me this too. I just couldn't wrap my head around why I couldn't just keep the freaking book bag. So I told him I would buy him the same bag when he actually needed it so I could just keep it. He said fine and laid down his principle on the matter. If I say it's borrowed, borrow it and take good care of it like how I would. And then I laid down my principle. If we have things to spare and one of us could benefit from having it, why wouldn't it be yours? I see and agree with his principle. I just don't think this was the time to force it, and it's starting to get to me how uptight he can be about the small things how I see them. Am I being too hard on him or ungrateful? Summary: my boyfriend had a bunch of new and extra backpacks in his closet after we cleaned out. After asking to borrow one, he said I could borrow one and got annoyed when I later wanted to borrow the backpack to go hiking in Zion National Park. I thought I should just take the backpack. He didn't agree. AITA for fighting with my boyfriend when he reposted a Twitter post implying that he settled for me because his best friend was the one who got away. I am 25. My boyfriend is 27 and is basically a dream guy. He is what you would call a golden retriever and is someone who is always willing to fight or die for his friends and me, I guess. We met through his friend Pete. We went to the same university and have been together for a little over a year. One of his other friends is Lily, who is 27, who he has been friends with since they were teenagers. As far as I know, they have always been platonic friends and have never interacted in any other way. The only problem is my boyfriend's brother, who believes that Lily and my boyfriend are destined to be together and is sometimes passive-aggressive towards me. The problem is, a couple of days ago, he left his phone unlocked when he went to the bathroom when I was at his flat. His brother, who also lives there, asked me about my Twitter account, and I told him I was too embarrassed to give it to him. He asked me why, so I said it's filled with me fangirling over different TV shows. He then told me that I shouldn't be embarrassed over my Twitter account, and opened my BF's phone, which was unlocked, and showed me his Twitter account. I had never seen it before, and I didn't know he had one. In his account, there was a lot of reposting of funny quotes and Tumblr memes, so I just took the phone and started scrolling, and I came across a couple of his own tweets. What hurt me was that one of them said it hurts when you look at your best friend and realize you'll never be able to tell her that she was the one, and you ultimately settle and compromise, no matter what you actually want. I gave the phone back to his brother and didn't say anything to him after reading it. I don't know. I was feeling horrible and I didn't want to talk to him about it. And my boyfriend's brother most probably didn't know what he reposted in his account. When my BF dropped me home, I just told him I saw what he tweeted. The date of the tweet was 3 months ago too, and I don't know, but I keep on thinking about that tweet over and over. He then told me that he didn't mean it that way. I asked him if he liked Lily, and he told me that it was nothing like that and asked how I saw his Twitter. I didn't want to snitch on his brother, so I told him his phone was unlocked and I just saw it. He told me off over his privacy and apologized if anything hurt my feelings because it was just a media site. Never once did he answer my questions about Lily. I have not talked to him since our argument, and his other friends are telling me I'm overreacting, that a tweet means nothing, and that I'm being stupid throwing a guy like him away because he really loves me. My sister thinks this is grounds for breaking up, and so do my friends. I don't understand if I'm being too much. AITA? AITA if I tell my mom she's asking like a stalker and needs to back off from male work colleague. My mother is 40 years old but is haunted by a male colleague that I, 20 years old, also work with. We all have worked together for a few years, but not directly with each other every day. My mom and this guy used to work together, but she fell in love with him. To preface, he is 11 years younger, and also at the time was in a long-term relationship. They would joke around with each other and had a good work friendship. Until my mom wanted more and would constantly get annoyed if he didn't give her attention. He came to me and told me about how it was making him feel uncomfortable and how he didn't feel the same way, on top of the fact that he was already in a relationship. However, when I went to my mother about this and said like leave him alone, he's not even available and doesn't want to reciprocate your feelings, it was always met with, well, he always talks about his relationship issues with me like that somehow made it okay. Anyways, after a while of them working together and me also joining the business to work in the same department, I accidentally caught them having an argument. You could also hear it from outside their office space. It was very embarrassing for me as other people did notice and were staring at me. I left for a bit only to find them both storming down a corridor, my mother loudly complaining to him. They both stopped when I was there. Later the guy pulled me aside and told me he didn't understand why my mother had just suddenly blown up at him. I asked if he had done anything, and he said that he had again reiterated that he didn't want to be involved with her and to leave it. Not long after this, my mother left the company. Might I add, she left without working her full notice period. For a while it was okay until my mother would randomly message him asking why he's ignoring her and isn't give her attention. This is one thing I've never had the chance to confront her about, as I don't want her to know that me and this guy do talk. I know she knows we are at present day close, but back at this point she always keeps telling me he was a bad person. The messages and calls still consistently go on even to this day. Well, after a few months, my mom comes back to the company, but in a different area in the business. I was hoping this would be a fresh start. It wasn't. The guy became single and showed interest in another woman he saw at work. So ironically, the woman my mother would always complain about and say stuff and would hate seeing the guy and this woman together at work. It got so bad at one point all she would talk about with me was the two of them, even if I would repeatedly say to just ignore it and that it has nothing to do with her. I told her to accept that the way she acted in the past meant that they couldn't be friends anymore, and to stop messaging him and trying to get something to start or to rekindle that friendship from before, because it had been so severely damaged there was no going back. Regardless of this, the guy was always nice to my mom and would help her with things like her car and stuff, even though he would ask me to help as well, or to make it very obvious to my mom this was a friendly gesture. This guy was always doing things for everyone, including me, so please understand that he wasn't trying to send mixed signals. Okay, so present day, this guy and me now work in an office together for a few months, get on really well, everything is chill. This guy comes to me one day saying he had found another job and is going to be leaving in 1 month's time. The company he's going to is called Mega Fake Name. Obviously I'm sad to see him go, but excited for him to start a new journey and wish him the best. Then suddenly my mother has an interview lined up a few weeks later, and when I ask what company it's for, she won't tell me. Keeps saying she doesn't want anyone sabotaging her chances of getting this job. My alarm bells are already going off at this point. The next day she phoned me saying she'd go to the job. I have to zone about 15 minutes trying to fish out what company she had applied for and gotten the job for. My annoyance when she went silent and just quietly says, yeah, it's Mega. She makes her last day the same day as the guy's last day. But get this, she never tells him that she got the job at the same company. Since they've been working together, the guys has told me that the other people at this new company have noticed how weird she is around him, or if his name is brought up in conversation, going out of her way to make sure he feels uncomfortable. I genuinely get so upset that she acts this way. I wish she'd never put herself in this situation and just left the guy alone. It seems no matter what I say, she just doesn't listen, and even though he has said it too, it doesn't matter. I hit my limit yesterday when they both phoned me one after the other. My mother complained about him to me over the phone, and when I said he chose to go to the same company as him, she denied no, that it was the same one, and told me she still had to do the interview, and she got the job, so that didn't matter. When I spoke with the guy, he told me that she's been acting weird and that other people at the company had realized that they used to work together, and they now think my mom is a stalker following him here. But her performance at the job isn't good when she's around him too, which is also now making them question if she fit for the job, and they've been laughing and joking about getting rid of her and that she too much. Might I add, she's also been chain smoking cigs even though she isn't a smoker. What do? I feel like I am the only adult in this situation. It feels so exhausting, especially since I've been having to sort all this stuff out for 4 years, even though I'm only young. I get so angry and sad. It's such a weird combination of emotions. I'm not able to do anything to help her in this new job. I'm not there to be damage control and to get these other ideas out of people's heads. I'm scared for her, and I just don't know what to do anymore. I care a lot, but I'm just so frustrated at this point because it feels like it was all for nothing. AITA, if I tell her this is the reality of things and people think she's acting like a stalker. AITA for not wanting my wife to go to her ex's funeral. We are all in our 30s. Her ex passed away suddenly from an aneurysm. I have been with my wife for 10 years, yet her history with her ex predates our relationship. As my wife recounts, they were college friends who became a couple only to realize they functioned better as friends. By the time I entered her life, this was all in the past. She emphasized early on how important her ex was to her. A few months into our relationship, I discovered her friend was actually her former husband. She assured me the relationship was strictly platonic. I wasn't comfortable with their closeness, but she presented it as a non-negotiable part of her life. When we got engaged, I broached the subject again, only to be met with confusion as she didn't see why marriage should alter her friendships. I suppressed my feelings and maintained civility. However, I couldn't help but feel jealous of their connection. Worse still, her ex's husband was also close to my wife, leaving me without support. They continued their routine outings for lunch and movies. Anytime I expressed my discomfort, my wife would dismiss it, reminding me that I had chosen to stay despite my reservations. After a tragic incident following one of their lunches, her ex passed away. While my wife grieved, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. Currently, my wife is assisting her ex's husband with funeral arrangements. I couldn't hold back any longer and questioned her decision to attend.